Sign your name, Sun Yinqing. 300 million is transferred to this card. From today forward, you cut all ties with the Liu family, no exceptions. My palm automatically pressed firm against my swollen lower abdomen, a quiet, protective reflex I'd picked up over the past 3 months. 3 tiny lives were developing under my skin, quiet and fragile, and their own father sat across from me, staring at me like a scheming gold digger trying to trap him with a fake pregnancy. I lifted my gaze to meet his sharp, unyielding eyes, throat tight with suppressed emotion. 3 years of sacrifice flashed through my mind in split-second cuts, turning down a fully funded advanced jewelry design program in Italy, stepping back from every personal ambition to fill the role of a quiet, compliant Liu wife, staying up countless nights to help him fix company financial loopholes, even swallowing my pride to smooth over fights between him and his mother Jing Meihua. All of it meant nothing to him now. I'm pregnant, Jingshan. My voice cracked thin, barely audible over the hum of the central air conditioner. A short, mocking huff burst out of him immediately. He leaned back against the couch, crossing his tailored suit arms over his chest, disbelief written all over his sharp jawline. Pregnant? Really? You expect me to buy that lie? We barely spent any nights together over these 3 years. Who's the real father you're hiding, Sun Yinqing? Some outside lover you've been sneaking around with behind my back. I tried to explain that single drunken night months ago, the only time we've been intimate in over a year, but he cut me off before I could finish the first sentence, one hand slamming lightly against the table to silence me. Enough of your fabricated excuses. You think I'm stupid enough to take this made-up pregnancy as leverage to demand more money. I'll give you one last chance to leave with dignity. Sign the papers, grab the settlement, and disappear from my life entirely. The city's neon skyscraper lights blazed through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind him, glowing bright and empty, matching the hollow coldness in his expression. Once, he'd whispered promises of lifelong care into my ear late at night, swearing he'd never let me suffer a single hardship. Now, he looked at me as nothing more than an annoying burden to dispose of quickly. I reached for the black fountain pen resting beside the agreement, fingers steady despite the rage and heartache swirling inside my chest. I scrawled my full name, Sun Yinqing, neat and unshaken on the final signature line, without a single pause. Liu Jingshan's eyebrows shot upward in genuine surprise. He'd spent hours mentally preparing arguments to wear me down, fully expecting me to beg, cry, or bargain for more compensation. He never imagined I'd surrender so effortlessly. Finally, you've gained some self-awareness. He snatched the signed document off the table, tucking it into his designer leather briefcase, without a second glance my way. I stood up from the couch as he turned to walk toward his study, stopping him before he could slip away entirely. My tone was calm, no screaming, no tears, just a quiet, unshakable warning. Liu Jingshan, you're going to regret this choice for the rest of your life. He flicked a hand to brush off my words, adjusting his expensive cufflinks while staring at his phone screen, not bothering to spare me a single glance. Regret? I only feel relief I cut my losses early. 300 million is more than enough for you to live comfortably alone. Go find a matching upper-class husband elsewhere. Stop reaching for things that don't belong to you. I picked up the bank card he'd pushed toward me, grabbed my tiny fabric handbag off the side table, and headed straight for the elevator entrance, without another word. Not a single call came from him as the metal doors slid shut between us, separating me from 3 years of wasted devotion and empty vows. Tears finally spilled down my cheeks once the elevator began its slow descent to the lobby, hot and unbidden, blurring the polished metal walls around me. The elevator doors opened to the lobby, and Uncle Zhao, the Liu family's decades-long elderly butler, hurried over with a small rolling suitcase stuffed with my basic clothing items, his face lined with quiet sorrow. Miss Su, I packed up a few of your personal belongings before the master locked your bedroom suite. He passed the suitcase handle into my grip, his rough old palm patting the back of my hand gently. The young master, he's blinded by anger right now. Please take good care of yourself out there. I nodded my thanks to him, gripping the suitcase tight as I stepped out onto the sidewalk, the warm night wind whipping loose strands of hair across my tear-streaked cheeks. The first stop I made after leaving the Liu mansion was the city's top private obstetrics hospital, where my college roommate Dr. Zhou Wanqing worked as a lead gynecologist. Wanqing pulled the ultrasound scan report out of the printer, her body shooting straight up out of her office chair the second she read the printed test results, shock etched deep into her features. She grabbed both of my arms tightly, voice shaking with equal parts excitement and raw worry. Yinqing, triplets, 3 separate fetal heartbeats, all developing inside you at once. She flipped through the scan pages quickly, her professional tone shifting to grave caution instantly. Your physical frame is narrow. Carrying 3 babies simultaneously carries extreme risk of premature labor, internal organ strain, even life-threatening complications for you during delivery. I don't care about the risks. I'm keeping all 3 of them, no exceptions. I rested one palm softly over my bulging lower stomach, resolve hardening inside every bone in my body. This trio of tiny lives was the only remaining connection I had to Liu Jingshan, the only piece of my broken marriage I would cling to after he cast me aside like trash. Wanqing hesitated for a beat before revealing critical medical information she'd kept stored away for years, facts I'd never fully processed until that devastating divorce day. You remember the severe high fever Liu Jingshan suffered during his late teens. The hospital complications permanently crippled his fertility levels. His sperm count is astronomically low. Conceiving even one child with him was statistically near impossible, let alone 3 healthy triplets from a single night of intimacy. My chest ached with bitter irony as I absorbed that truth. The miracle pregnancy he'd called a fake, a bastard child conceived with some unknown lover, was actually the rarest possible biological outcome for his damaged body. He refuses to believe the babies are his. He called them illegitimate spawn straight to my face. I tugged the corner of my lips into a hollow, bitter smile, eyes stinging again with suppressed grief. Wanqing slammed her clipboard down on her office desk, frustration boiling over. What are you planning to do next? You can't raise 3 high-risk triplets alone with no support system to fall back on. I'll rent a quiet apartment in Huizhou, far away from Shenzhen's chaotic social circles, and carry these babies to term on my own. I met her worried gaze head-on, clear and unwavering. But I need your full medical support throughout every stage of this pregnancy, Wanqing. I can't trust any other doctor with a secret. 2 months of quiet, peaceful gestation passed without incident. I rented a low-rise residential unit in a secluded Huizhou neighborhood, living off the 300 million divorce settlement Lu Jingshan had handed over, spending every day attending scheduled prenatal checkups, studying infant care textbooks online, and tracing the faint tiny kicks of my triplets beneath my dress. For the first time since marrying into the Lu household, I existed without walking on eggshells around Zheng Meihua's constant judgment and Lu Jingshan's cold emotional distance. That fragile peace shattered completely one evening as I heated a mug of warm milk in the kitchen, my mother Chen Xilan's frantic, sobbing voice blaring through my cell phone speaker the second I answered the incoming call. Nianqing, your father Su Jinyuan's jewelry company Yanjin Jewelry is completely ruined. Rival firms cut all supply lines overnight, forced massive debt onto our accounts, and your dad suffered an acute myocardial infarction from the stress. He's trapped in emergency ICU right now, fighting for his life. The ceramic milk mug slipped out of my grasp, clattering against a tile kitchen floor, milk spilling across the cold stone surface. My heart plummeted straight into my stomach, panic flooding every vein in my body. Yanjin Jewelry was my father's 20-year life's work, a small but respected local fine jewelry brand he built from nothing. How did this happen out of nowhere? Our business had steady long-term supplier and client partnerships for over a decade. I demanded, knuckles white where I squeezed the phone so hard the plastic casing creaked under pressure. My mother's broken, tearful reply carried unmistakable venom directed at one single person. It's all Zheng Meihua's doing. The second you signed those divorce papers, she mobilized the full resources of the Lu Group to destroy our family's livelihood. She's sworn to make the Su family pay for daring to connect their daughter with the Lu household. Zheng Meihua's hatred for me stretched all the way back to my wedding day. She'd spent 3 years sneering behind my back, convinced I was a penniless gold digger unworthy of her lead son, constantly belittling my family's small jewelry business as a worthless street stall operation. Now that Lu Jingshan had officially cut ties with me, she held zero reason to hold back her retaliatory attacks against my blood relatives. I'm catching the earliest high-speed train back to Shenzhen immediately to sort this out, Mom. Stay by Dad's ICU bed and update me on every small change in his condition. I hung up the call and instantly dialed Wanqing's number, rushing to explain the sudden family crisis. Wanqing's voice shot through the phone with urgent panic the moment she heard, I plan to travel cross-city while carrying triplets. You're insane. Long train rides jostle your abdominal cavity constantly. Triplet gestation puts you at extreme risk of placental abruption or early labor. I have no choice, Wanqing. My father's life hangs in the balance right now. I grabbed my crossbody bag and apartment keys, already mentally mapping the route to the high-speed rail station. Then I'm driving my private car to Huizhou to pick you up and ride back to Shenzhen alongside you. But you have to promise me one non-negotiable rule. Your physical safety and the triplets' health always come before any family business disputes, no exceptions. Her tone left zero room for argument, loyal and protective as ever. I agreed to Wanqing's terms, booking the earliest available train ticket within 10 minutes, unaware Zheng Meihua had already sent her personal assistant Fang Jie to my temporary Huizhou address with a confiscation checklist, ready to seize every jewelry and luxury item Lu Jingshan had gifted me during our marriage the second I stepped foot back in Shenzhen. What I thought was merely a business vendetta targeting my father's brand was only the opening move of Zheng Meihua's full-scale campaign to strip me of every asset, dignity, and lifeline I possessed. We arrived back at my temporary Shenzhen apartment the following morning, barely unpacking our overnight luggage when sharp, deliberate knocks echoed against the front door. I pulled the door open to find 2 sharply dressed female administrative assistants standing on the landing, a bulky moving delivery man hauling a large empty cardboard crate behind them, ready to pack away my belongings. Fang Jie, Zheng Meihua's cold, unflappable right-hand personal assistant, stepped forward holding a typed printed inventory list, her expression blank and devoid of any hint of politeness. Miss Su, Madame Zheng sent me to retrieve all luxury jewelry and designer handbags young Master Lu gifted you during your marriage term. Every item marked on this checklist must be surrendered to us today without omission. I scanned the printed inventory line by line, spotting clear discrepancies immediately. Several diamond necklaces, a vintage jade bracelet, and 2 limited edition leather handbags listed on the paper were purchases I'd funded entirely with my own personal savings before marrying Lu Jingshan, unrelated to any marital gifts he'd given me. The 7th and 9th entries on this list are my independent personal property, bought long before I ever met Lu Jingshan. I have full original purchase receipts stored in my desk drawer to prove ownership. I pointed to the conflicting lines on the inventory sheet, attempting to reason with her calmly. Fang Jie's mouth curled into a cold, unyielding smirk, her tone turning icy and threatening in an instant. Madame Zheng issued a non-negotiable order. Every single object on this checklist is to be collected, no exceptions. If you choose to resist cooperation, our legal team will file civil property recovery paperwork and drag this dispute into public court proceedings. The gossip circulating through Shenzhen's high society jewelry circles will severely damage your personal reputation. Wanqing pushed past my shoulder, stepping between me and Fang Jie to shield my pregnant belly, anger blazing in her eyes as she shot back at the assistant. Where are the signed written gift transfer contracts proving these items belong to the Lu family? Where's the formal legal documentation revoking ownership after divorce? You can't simply storm a private residence and seize personal possessions with a typed checklist and empty threats. Fang Jia remained completely unfazed by Wan Qing's outburst, shrugging her shoulders casually as if we were throwing a trivial tantrum. Madame Zheng is fully prepared to absorb all legal fees from a lawsuit. Ask yourself this. Do you really want your triplet pregnancy dragged through messy, tabloid-worthy court hearings for a few million worth of accessories? My fingers clenched tight at my sides, rage warring with desperate fear for my father's unstable medical state. If I dragged Zheng Meihua into a property lawsuit right now, she would definitely retaliate by accelerating her total liquidation of Yanjin jewelry while my father lay helpless in the ICU. I had no spare bandwidth to fight two simultaneous battles at once. Bring the cardboard crate inside. I'll hand over every single item listed on that inventory sheet. I turned and walked toward the master bedroom closet without further protest, ignoring Wan Qing's shocked, panicked shout of my name from the hallway. Mianqing, don't just let them rob you blind like this. Those pieces collectively add up to well over 7 million RMB in market value. Wan Qing followed me into the bedroom, watching as I carefully removed each jewelry box and designer bag from the shelf one by one, stacking them neatly into the moving crate Fang Jia had brought. I rested one palm lightly over my stretched, heavy abdomen, the triplets shifting restlessly inside me as my stress level spiked. 7 million in material goods is trivial compared to the 20-year family business my father built from scratch. I can afford to let these luxury items go for now. I can't afford to watch his life's work collapse while he's fighting for his life in the hospital ICU. This isn't surrender. Wan Qing, I'm simply biding my time until I hold enough leverage to strike back at every person who's wronged me. My voice was quiet, cold, and determined as I sealed the cardboard crate shut and handed it over to Fang Jia's delivery worker. Fang Jia ran a final inventory check, ticking every box on her printed list before turning to leave, a subtle, condescending sneer tugging at her lips as she exited through the front door. Once the apartment door slammed shut behind them, Wan Qing stomped her feet against the floor, fuming at the unfair power play Zheng Meihua had forced me into. I left the apartment an hour later to visit my father at the Central City ICU ward, my mother huddled outside the glass observation window with red, swollen eyes puffy from endless hours of crying. She grabbed my arm the second she spotted me walking down the hospital corridor, fresh tears spilling down her wrinkled cheeks. Your father's vital signs stabilized temporarily, but he's still not out of critical danger. The doctors warned any sudden emotional shock could trigger a second fatal heart attack at any moment. She pulled me onto a plastic waiting room bench, recounting Zheng Meihua's calculated corporate attack blow by blow in broken, shaky sentences. Less than 30 days following our divorce finalization, Zheng Meihua had deployed Lu Group's full industry influence to systematically dismantle Yanjin jewelry piece by piece. She poached the brand's lead chief jewelry designer and 3 master artisan craftsmen with doubled salary offers, coordinated every major gemstone raw material supplier to cut all long-term supply contracts simultaneously, and launched a shell investment company to maliciously acquire all my father's newly funded seasonal product lines at rock-bottom predatory prices. Within a 3-month window, a once profitable, well-respected local jewelry enterprise dissolved into a debt-ridden empty shell, trapped under mountains of unpaid supplier invoices and bank loan obligations. Zheng Meihua had openly bragged to every industry contact that she intended to teach the Su family a permanent, unforgettable lesson for daring to climb the social ladder by marrying their daughter into the wealthy Lu household. My chest rose and fell with heavy, labored breaths as I processed the full scale of her cruelty, my stomach twisting with sharp, anxious cramps that made the triplets kick hard against my inner abdominal wall, sensing my overwhelming distress. A clear, structured plan began forming inside my head as I sat beside my mother on the hospital bench. First, confront Lu Jingshin directly at Lu Group's headquarters to negotiate a truce, then leverage whatever leverage I could muster to halt his mother's relentless corporate sabotage campaign. I arrived at Lu Group's downtown high-rise corporate tower early the next morning, the lobby receptionist's face twisting into an awkward, nervous grimace the moment she recognized my features. She fumbled with her desk telephone, stammering out a hesitant greeting. Listen, young Master Lu is currently locked into a full-day executive board meeting. He can't accept any unscheduled visitors right now. Inform him his former wife is waiting downstairs with a negotiation offer directly tied to his mother's ongoing corporate warfare against Yanjin Jewelry. Tell him this matter carries far higher priority than any routine boardroom discussion he's attending. I stood rigid in the lobby waiting area, refusing to leave or reschedule my visit. The receptionist hesitated for 40 full minutes before finally receiving internal approval to escort me up to the top floor executive CEO suite. I pushed open the heavy solid wood office door, freezing mid-step when I spotted Lin Xiu perched on the leather lounge sofa beside Lu Jingshin, sipping expensive imported coffee from a porcelain mug. Lu Jingshin's longtime first love, the white moonlight he'd always claimed he loved before marrying me. Lin Xiu's face lit up with artificial, overly sweet delight the second she laid eyes on me, leaning her body naturally into Lu Jingshin's side to mark her claimed territory, a deliberate show of intimacy designed to cut deep into my heart. Mianqing Jia, it's been ages since we last crossed paths. You look so worn down since leaving the Lu household. Adjusting to life without all the luxury comfort must be terribly difficult for you. Her tone dripped with saccharine fake sympathy, every word laced with hidden smug triumph. I completely ignored her performative taunting, fixing my full gaze solely on Lu Jingshin where he sat behind his giant mahogany executive desk sorting printed business reports. I only came here to discuss the unrelenting destruction Zheng Meihua is inflicting on my father's jewelry brand. This has nothing to do with personal marital drama between us or Lin Xiu's presence in this office. Lu Jingshin didn't bother lifting his head from his paperwork stack, his tone dismissive and utterly unconcerned as he flipped through printed financial statements. Our divorce settlement fully severed all legal and personal ties between you and the Lu family. Market competition is an unavoidable natural part of the jewelry industry. Yunjin Jewelry was always a tiny, under-resourced workshop destined to collapse the second it faced legitimate corporate pressure. He lifted his chin to glance at me for the first time since I entered the room, cold disdain sharp in every syllable he spoke. Your father shamelessly pushed his own daughter onto me 3 years ago just to secure lucrative business partnerships with the Lu Group. Now that your marriage contract's expired, his company failing is nothing more than well-deserved karma. Don't come crying to me begging for handouts. It's embarrassing to witness. He's your former father-in-law, Lu Jingshin. How can you watch his life's work get destroyed without lifting a single finger to intervene? My whole body trembled with restrained rage, fingers digging hard into the strap of my crossbody bag. X. He dragged out that single syllable with cruel emphasis, cutting me off sharply. Your family struggles hold zero relevance to my corporate operations now that our legal marriage bond no longer exists. Learn to grasp your new social identity. Lin Xiu interjected herself into our argument at that moment, laying a delicate, soothing hand on Lu Jingshin's forearm while tossing me a patronizing, pitying glance. Jingshin, don't speak so harshly to Mianqing Jie. She's clearly cornered with nowhere else to turn for help. She can't help begging for your mercy. Have a little compassion for her desperate predicament. Her fake benevolence curdled my stomach, every gesture a transparent power play to demonstrate she'd replaced me permanently in Lu Jingshin's life and household. I pushed past the wave of nausea rolling through my body, pulling a pre-printed legal waiver document out of my handbag and sliding it across his desk toward him. I'm not here to beg for charity. I've drafted a permanent no-contact legal affidavit. I swear on full legal penalty that all members of my Su family, will never reach out to you, your mother, or Lin Xiu for any reason for the rest of our natural lives. In exchange, you order Zheng Meihua to immediately cease every act of corporate sabotage targeting Yunjin Jewelry, effective immediately. Lu Jingshin glanced over the typed waiver briefly before letting out a short, mocking laugh, tossing the paper back toward my side of the desk without signing a single line. A trade deal? What bargaining power do you possibly hold over me to demand concessions from the Lu Group? This waiver offers zero tangible benefit to my business or personal life whatsoever. Lin Xiu chimed in again, her voice laced with subtle mockery. Exactly, Mianqing Jie. You're no longer the Lu family matriarch. You have no standing to negotiate favorable terms with us. Don't cling to that delusion. I stared at the two of them side by side on the office sofa, every tender memory from our 3-year marriage evaporating into thin air, replaced by bone-deep icy disappointment. I'd sacrificed my dream career, personal ambitions, and years of my youth to support this man's rise to corporate power, and none of that devotion had earned me even the smallest shred of basic human decency or mercy when my family faced ruin. I turned to walk toward the office exit, ready to abandon all hope of negotiating a truce through Lu Jingshin himself, until a sharp, commanding voice halted my footsteps halfway to the door. Stop right there. If you want my mother to pull back her attacks on your father's failing brand, transfer the full $300 million divorce settlement back into my corporate bank account, every single cent without deduction. That's my only non-negotiable condition. I froze mid-step, utterly stunned by his ruthless ultimatum. That $300 million was my sole financial safety net, the only money I had to fund my triplet high-risk prenatal care and support my father's recovery and debt repayments. Lu Jingshin intended to strip me of every last resource, forcing me to choose between saving my father's business or securing medical survival funds for my 3 unborn children. I stood in his office doorway, mind racing to formulate a backup plan, realizing the only remaining figure powerful enough to counter Zheng Meihua's authority within the Lu household was Lu Jinbang, Jingshin's elderly founding grandfather and the original creator of the Lu Group empire. I would visit the Lu family's private mountain villa the very next morning to plead my case directly to the one person who might show me mercy. I left Lu Group's top floor with my legs shaking so hard I could barely steady myself on the sidewalk. Zhou Wenqing's car was parked at the curb, and she sprinted over the second she spotted my ashen face, grabbing my elbow to prop me up. Are you insane? Hand back the entire $300 million. That money's your only buffer for the triplets' high-risk delivery bills. Wenqing's voice cracked with panic, wiping a thin layer of cold sweat off my forehead with a tissue. I don't have a choice. If I refuse, Zheng Meihua will drain every last asset of Yunjin Jewelry within 7 days, and my dad's heart won't survive another bankruptcy blow. I leaned against the car door, one heavy hand resting atop my massive belly, feeling the 3 babies stir restlessly inside from my surging stress hormones. But I've got one last card to play before I transfer that money back to him, Grandpa Lu Jinbang. Wenqing's brows shot tight with worry. Zheng Meihua controls all household decisions these days, and Jingshin won't listen to anyone but his mom. Do you really think the old man will side against his own son and daughter-in-law? Grandpa built this group from scratch. He's always hated Zheng Meihua's vicious, underhanded business tactics, and he knows Jingshin's fertility medical history that everyone else sweeps under the rug. I slid into the passenger seat, fastening the seatbelt slow and carefully to avoid squeezing my abdomen. Take me to the Lu private villa in Nanshan, Hohai right now. I need 5 minutes alone with him, no interruptions. The villa spanned an entire residential block, white stone walls wrapped around sprawling gardens, and a private calligraphy study. Uncle Zhao answered the iron gate when I rang the intercom, shock flooding his lined face the second he laid eyes on my swollen 8-month belly silhouette. Miss Su, the master hasn't invited outsiders these days. Madame Zheng ordered all staff to turn you away on sight. He hesitated, glancing over his shoulder toward the main house to check for Zheng Meihua's presence, then stepped aside with a quiet sigh after seeing how pale and exhausted I looked. I'll sneak you into the study for 5 minutes only. If Zheng catches wind of this, both of us will get reprimanded harshly. I followed Uncle Zhao down sandstone walkways lined with osmanthus bushes, pushing open the study's carved wooden door without knocking. Lu Jinbang stood behind a rosewood desk, brush hovering midair over a sheet of rice paper covered in bold calligraphy strokes. He twisted around at the creak of the door, ink dripping thick onto the blank paper the second he caught sight of me. Yanqing, how did you get past the gate guards? He set his writing brush down, pushing reading glasses onto the bridge of his nose to study my rounded belly, eyes widening bit by bit as realization sank in. Grandpa, I won't waste your time with empty pleasantries. I stepped forward, voice steady despite the tight lump in my throat. You need to order Zheng Meihua to pull all her forces off Yanjin Jewelry immediately. She's draining my father's company dry, and he's still recovering from a life-threatening myocardial infarction in ICU. Lu Zhenbang sank into his sandalwood armchair with a heavy huff, fingers tapping the armrest slowly, a weary, helpless look crossing his aged features. I've tried talking Jingshan down dozens of times, child. He's fully convinced you carried another man's illegitimate children, and he refuses to listen to any logic or medical evidence I bring up. I have proof to overturn every lie he's clung to for months. I pulled a folded medical report out of my crossbody bag, sliding it across the desk toward him. This is the latest reproductive specialist assessment on Lu Jingshan. His teenage fever left his sperm count critically low, but not zero. Natural conception is astronomically rare, yet medically possible under extreme circumstances, like that single drunken night we shared pre-divorce. I'm carrying triplets, all biologically his blood, and your great-grandchildren. Lu Zhenbang's aged hands trembled violently as he unfolded the report, tracing every printed medical line with his gnarled fingertips, lips parted in quiet disbelief. Minutes ticked by in total silence as he absorbed every clinical detail, shock melting into heartbroken pity once he processed the full truth. 3 great-grandbabies, my own flesh and blood, cast aside like garbage by my foolish grandson. He set the paper down, eyes glistening within tears, pushing himself unsteadily to his feet to stand in front of me, hand hovering halfway toward my stomach before pulling back out of fear of hurting the triplets. Our Lu family has wronged you beyond measure. Yanqing, I bear partial blame for failing to rein in Meihua's cruelty sooner. I don't need apologies right now, Grandpa. I need a lifeline for my dad's business. My tone stayed calm. No begging, just plain factual desperation. The banks are threatening forced liquidation in a week if we can't clear 120 million in overdue loans. A sharp resolve hardened Lu Zhenbang's wrinkled features. I'll inject 100 million of my personal private capital into Yanjin Jewelry by tomorrow morning to stabilize cash flow and halt all bank seizure procedures. This is my personal investment, untouchable by Meihua or Jingshan's corporate accounts. My shoulders sagged with massive relief, the weight crushing my chest lightening at last, until he laid out his non-negotiable condition, tone firm and unshakable. There is one binding term to this financial rescue. Once the triplets are born, they must formally recognize the Lu family bloodline and return to the clan as legal Lu heirs, registered under the Lu household Hoku. I froze, hesitation gnawing at my insides. Going back to the Lu household after all the humiliation, theft, and targeted sabotage Zheng Meihua had inflicted on me sounded like walking straight back into a cage I'd barely escaped. Lu Zhenbang read my hesitation instantly, softening his sharp tone to gentle persuasion. I understand your hatred for Meihua and Jingshan, child, but those 3 infants hold the largest inheritance stake in Lu Group once I pass away. If they're legally recognized Lu descendants, no one in this entire business circle will dare bully you or your father's brand ever again. Power and protection will follow their blood status. His logic cut straight through my hesitation. As long as the triplets held unrivaled heir status, Zheng Meihua's endless retaliatory schemes would lose all teeth. I nodded slow, deliberate agreement, laying out one ironclad counter-demand of my own. I'll comply with the heir registration after birth, but until the DNA test officially confirms their blood relation to Jingshan, no one, not even you, can leak word of the triplets' existence to Jingshan or Zheng Meihua. I want him to fully witness exactly what he threw away when the truth finally blows up in front of the entire industry. A cold, knowing smile tugged at Lu Zhenbang's lips, a rare flicker of steel beneath his gentle elderly demeanor. I respect your choice. All capital transfers will remain anonymous on paper, no trace linking the rescue funds back to our conversation today. I left the villa with a lifeline secured for my father's business, a hidden trump card tucked away for the inevitable reckoning with Lu Jingshan and his mother. For the next 2 months, I settled into a private high-end obstetric ward in Huizhou Lu Zhenbang had arranged for my safe triplet gestation, away from Shenzhen's gossip and surveillance. Wanqing visited every other day to run prenatal scans, bringing baby clothes and parenting books, and the quiet routine almost tricked me into believing peace would last indefinitely. The calm shattered at 7.5 months gestation, when Wanqing burst through my ward door one evening, white-knuckling her phone with a livid, terrified expression. She shoved the screen into my face to display Lin Xu's public WeChat Moments post, a polished photo of her clinging to Lu Jingshan's arm outside a Michelin-starred restaurant, flowery romantic caption celebrating his birthday surprise date night. I saw this spread across every industry group chat half an hour ago. Everyone's congratulating them on their upcoming engagement, acting like you never existed. Wanqing's voice dripped with frustration, watching my unblinking stare at the photograph. I traced the outline of my swollen belly with one palm, no hot tears of heartbreak rising to my eyes, only heavy, bitter resignation. Grief had burned out months prior, replaced by unshakable resentment over all the sacrifices I'd wasted on a man who tossed me and our unborn children aside without a second thought. Let them celebrate their little happy ending. Their joy won't last once the triplets' identity comes to light. I handed her phone back, settling back against the hospital pillow to rest my aching lower back. That same night, an anonymous text landed in my phone inbox, no caller ID, the words laced with Zheng Meihua's signature venomous sarcasm. You're carrying some random man's bastard brats, aren't you? Abort them quickly before you ruin any slim chance you have of remarrying. Don't drag innocent infants into your shameful mess. I took a screenshot instantly, filing it into a password-locked cloud folder I built to stockpile every piece of evidence against the Lu matriarch. Audio recordings of Fong Jie seizing my jewelry, voice memos of my mother recounting Yunjin's sabotage, bank trail screenshots of Zhang's predatory business moves, and now this threatening anonymous text. Every small wound they inflicted, I preserved as ammunition for the day I'd strike back full force. 3 weeks later, disaster crashed down again, without warning. My father's finance director, he called my ward line in a blind panic, voice cracking over static. Monsieur, disaster struck. 3 major lending banks simultaneously issued formal early repayment demand letters today, 120 million total principal owed, full settlement required within 7 calendar days, or they initiate full asset liquidation proceedings against Yunjin. My blood ran cold. Lu Jinbang's 100 million private injection had covered supplier debts entirely, leaving barely 2 million liquid operating capital left in the company accounts, nowhere near enough to cover the massive sudden bank bill. What about Grandpa Lu's capital reserve? Didn't that stabilize all outstanding loan terms? I gripped the phone tight enough to crack the plastic casing, triplets kicking violently inside my belly from my spike in adrenaline. The old master suffered a sudden cerebral infarction 2 days ago, admitted to critical care, ICU nonstop. All his personal financial accounts are temporarily frozen under hospital supervision while he recovers. Director He's tone sank into hopeless despair. Madame Zheng seized full control of all Lu household corporate affairs during his medical absence. She pulled strings with every partnered bank to accelerate our loan deadlines the second Grandpa lost consciousness. I hung up the call in numb silence, mind racing through every contact I still held in the industry, landing on Shen Jixing, my university senior, now a top-tier venture capital partner. He pursued me gently back in college, remained a loyal platonic friend even after I married Lu Jingshin, never overstepping boundaries once. I dialed his number without hesitation, laying out the urgent 120 million 7-day bridge loan request plainly. Shen Jixing drove down from Shenzhen to my Huizhou ward at dawn the next day, shock crossing his face for half a second when he saw my massive triplet belly, then swiftly masking his surprise to focus fully on my crisis. I recounted Zheng Meihua's corporate war against my family, omitting the critical detail that the triplets were Lu Jingshin's biological children to avoid unnecessary outside gossip. He sat silent for 10 full minutes after hearing the full timeline of sabotage and blackmail, steepling his fingers while weighing the risk of injecting such a large short-term loan into a company targeted by Lu Group's matriarch. I can coordinate the full 120 million bridge capital within 3 business days to buy you breathing room, Yanqing, but this only patches the bleeding temporarily. Zheng Meihua holds total control over all upstream gem suppliers and retail distribution channels tied to the traditional jewelry trade your father runs. I don't plan to keep operating Yunjin's old wholesale model forever. A sharp, clear business blueprint clicked fully into place in my head as I spoke. I trained in high-end original jewelry design in Italy before I dropped the program to marry Jingshin. I'm going to launch an independent designer brand, bypass every supply chain and retail networks and controls entirely, operating only direct online stores and curated high-end buyer boutiques. Shen Jixing's eyes lit with genuine admiration for the plan's ingenuity, leaning forward across the ward coffee table to lock eyes with me. I'll approve the bridge loan immediately, on one single condition. Once your original brand launches and turns consistent profit, you grant my VC from exclusive first-round investment rights. I let out the first genuine faint smile in months, shaking his hand firmly across the table. Deal. 3 days later, I transferred the full 300 million divorce settlement back into Lu Jingshin's corporate account, fulfilling his cruel ultimatum to buy temporary peace for Yunjin jewelry. The same afternoon, Shen Jixing's VC fund wired the emergency bridge loan to my father's company account, staving off the bank liquidation deadline at the very last hour. I thought I'd bought a window of quiet to prepare my designer brand launch, until Zhou Wanqing called me late that night, voice trembling as she sent over local financial news headlines. The front page headline blared vicious fabricated slander. Yunjin Jewelry founder's daughter sued Yanqing extramarital affair with venture capital partner. Secret illegitimate pregnancy confirmed. Attached was a blurry, angle-manipulated photo taken outside my ward entrance that morning, capturing Shen Jixing leaning in to hand me a printed loan document, cropped to look like an intimate romantic embrace. Seconds after I finished scanning the slander piece, a cold, venomous text popped up from Lu Jingshin's personal number. No preamble, pure unbridled contempt. I truly underestimated how shameless you are, Su Yanqing. Barely half a year post-divorce, and you're already entangled with new men, carrying his bastard spawn. Tomorrow I'll order every remaining Yunjin supplier to cut all ties permanently. You've brought this ruin entirely on yourself. I gripped the phone so tight my knuckles whitened, rage burning hot behind my ribs as the triplets thrashed wildly inside my belly, reacting to my boiling fury. Zheng Meihua had deployed private surveillance operatives to track my every movement for weeks, captured a harmless business conversation, doctored the imagery, leaked fabricated tabloid news to Lu Jingshin, and handed him the perfect excuse to annihilate my father's brand once and for all. Cornered with no more passive workarounds left, I dialed Lu Jinbang's private legal counsel, voice cold and resolute. Prepare full legal paternity testing, expedited paperwork, and complete asset preservation filings immediately. It's time to stop hiding proof of the triplets' Lu bloodline. We're done letting Zheng Meihua and Lu Jingshin walk all over us.